Hey, it's Coach Cam, episode 1, Let's Be Honest podcast. I've been really hyped about getting this out to you guys. Been dragging my feet, but I'm finally getting it done. I wanted to make this podcast because I wanted to just like make honest takes about the baseball community. What's done good, what's done not so good. And again, say things that a lot of people agree with, but are too afraid to say it. You know, I'm doing this because I actually really care about kids and parents who decide to pursue baseball. Like, it's who I was. It's what gets me up in the morning. Like, I love to coach. I love to mentor players and parents. So, you know, that's why I'm doing this. And in this intro, I just wanted to really, focus on like the highlights, in the baseball community, like 12 and under baseball, high school baseball, both travel and for school. Wanted to talk a little hitting and wanted to talk a little pitching. And that's basically the energy today. So I want to keep it moving. But first thing I wanted to do is start with kind of a little bit about me and kind of how I came up and just like kind of what I think about, the coaching community right now. I think the best coaches, like it's the best time to be a kid playing baseball because the best youth coaches are 90s kids between like 30 and 40 right now. And the reason is we saw select baseball when it was brand new. Like we were kids when it was brand new and we've seen like what it's grown into and we got some stories, right? And first I want to talk about like how I got into it. I was 11 years old. My pops comes to me, my dad's an ex-pro. I was big, I was strong. So, I was kind of like dominating at the little league level as I should have, like with my size and strength and the advantage that I had in my dad teaching me the game. But I was like 11 years old. I hit like 9 bombs, threw like 3 or 4 no-hitters in the regular season. Like, I was killing it. So, my dad comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, Cam, I'm getting you on a new team." And I was confused at first because I thought I could only play for one little league team. And he's like, "No, this is actual real baseball. It's open bases, pickoffs. Like it's the game that we watch on TV." And I was really excited. So I go to practice, whatever. And in my first event, I get a start on the bump. And at the time I was probably like, 65, 68. Like I threw the ball pretty hard, not the hardest, but I was pretty stiff, right? So the very first pitch of the game, leadoff hitter on the other team just smokes one right back in my head. And I was like, oh snap. Okay. Game time. They scored like 6 runs in the first inning. Banged it, right? So I like literally walking back to the dugout after the inning, I was looking at my dad like, oh, okay, yeah, all right. And that's why I really fell in love with the game. It was the first time like I was like just really, really excited about the future, like playing against kids who were as good as me. A lot of them were better than me. Like honestly, and this kind of goes back to what I was talking about like the best coaches being 90s kids. Between 30 and 40 right now will be the best youth coaches because it was the first time that like you went out of your area and played with like real dudes. I'm not kidding you. I played with 4 future major leaguers before I turned 13. And like it's the biggest advantage for me as a coach now because like I have this knack for evaluating talent, especially with the younger guys and early high school guys. Like I can see like your potential, right? Like I project guys out really well. And it's completely attributed to when I was a kid, like and seeing these like future major leaguers when they were little dudes. I feel like it's the biggest advantage. And I know there's so many coaches out there that had similar experiences that are really excelling with youth players, right? So on that topic to go into like youth baseball now, like the thing is like with 12 and under baseball, it's really about having fun, being interested in the game, learning like the physical skills and mental skills and mindset that you need to be good once you get to high school, right? That's the whole goal. But it's kind of broken. Like we've priced out the middle class. Like it's expensive to play youth baseball now, and I hesitate to say this because I love Little League, like the organization, the philanthropy, the sportsmanship that they teach, the community, playing with the boys that you go to school with. Like that's awesome, right? But like I can attribute the kind of decline of youth baseball, recreational youth baseball is like Little League's fault because they haven't like changed with the times. Like for the life of me, I can't understand why they haven't backed the bases up, why they haven't backed the fences up and the mound up, make it a little bit, longer game and make it real baseball. And I know they've done like little 50, 70 leagues here and there, but it should be across the board at 10U, like you play real baseball. And I think you'd see a lot of families players come back to Little League. Like, why am I going to pay $250 a month to play, on this team? And I get one field practice and I get one batting cage practice and, 2 tournaments, a month. We're playing 5 or 6 games. It's like, it shouldn't be that expensive. And for the life of me, I can't understand why Little League hasn't changed with the times and made it to where recreational baseball was real baseball. Baseball is the only youth sport that at age 10, you're not playing the same game that you would play on the high school field. Football, it's the same game. Basketball, it's the same game. Soccer, it's the same game. But baseball, recreationally, we play a completely different game. And I think that's the big reason why kids leave Little League is because they want to see the game that they play on TV. With the gear and the travel and the food and the, monthly dues, youth baseball 12 and under is kind of broken. And it's kind of sad for just normal families that have kids that love baseball because it's a huge expense to continue to play and develop, right? And then moving into to high school ball, I went viral making a post about this in the past, kind of went about it the wrong way, seemed like I was attacking high school coaches, but I say this with love for the kids. Like if your first 2 years of high school, you don't make varsity, you're not going to develop much. That's just the truth. High school is where a lot of development stops, right? If you're not top 10% of talent, if you're not a freshman or sophomore that's on varsity, you're going to spend 2 years getting very few quality reps. The field reps are dominated by the varsity. And it was like that when I was in high school too. And it's like that now. And people are afraid to say that, but it's the truth. The varsity dominates the reps. And the sophomore team and the JV, they're just there to run bases for the varsity or field for the varsity, every now and again. I mean, some 6A high schools in Houston, Texas, the freshmen, sophomores don't even get on the field. They practice on some grass patch behind the field. And you cannot tell me, but if I say, you should really think hard about playing high school baseball as a freshman or sophomore, if you're not varsity caliber, it's like, oh my gosh, the world's over. Don't say that. That's terrible. It's like, dude, I actually care about the kid. I want to see the kid develop. And again, if he's top 10% of talent and he's going to make varsity as a freshman or sophomore, go for it, bro. But if you're not, you have to take that into consideration that you're going to have to develop on your own because it's not going to happen at practice. Right. And I've seen so many kids that just have to try to jumpstart their career their junior year when they're finally, big and strong enough to get to varsity, but they haven't developed, the skill sets that they need to excel, so that they can, get to the college level. And, that's just the truth of the matter. And it's kind of the same thing to kind of segue into summer baseball, right? The travel, the showcase scene. It's again, if you're top 10% of talent, if you can make a scout team or a top team for these organizations, or maybe they're 1 and 2 teams, the organization doesn't care about you, dude. It's just the truth, right? And you don't practice in the summer. You play 6 tournaments out of 8 weeks, most of y'all, with very little practice. So where are you developing? Again, if you don't have college tools to showcase, if you're not a 6'6" runner, if you're not a 90-mile-an-hour arm in the field or on the bump, if you're not an excellent defender, if you're not going to hit 400 on the PG circuit, if you're not going to hit, home runs consistently on the PG circuit, then you do not need to be playing. You need to be getting to the point where you can do that. So you are recruitable, right? There is a little value in the summer circuit for experience, but at the same time, I've been to all the major national events, and you're lucky to run into a really good team. There's 400 teams at some of these events, 200 teams, whatever, at these massive events. You're lucky to run into a top level team and get experience facing legit pitching or seeing legit, other legit offenses or defenders. There's value in that, but it's rare that you see that, right? So unless you're on a team that's consistently making it to bracket, you're not going to get great experience, and you're for damn sure not going to get exposure. Exposure is the biggest lie told parents by the baseball community. My kid needs to get exposure. My kid needs to get exposure. Why? He doesn't have any college tools yet. He needs those tools before exposure matters at all, right? But, again, it's we're all on a team to make these large organizations, these tournament organizations rich. And it's wild to me. It's at the detriment of the kid. The kid doesn't develop, and the parents pay just an unreal amount of money to wear some organization's jersey. Again, if you're top 10% of talent, the model works great for you. If you're not, it's really bad for you. and you spend 2 years, your freshman year and your freshman summer and your sophomore and your sophomore summer, not getting better, right? Because you don't have time to train your skill set and your body and your athleticism and recover, right? And play all those games. And yeah, you can do both, but it's really, really hard and really unnecessary and really expensive. So if you're a parent or a player who's like young in your high school career and you're not quite varsity caliber yet, like please consider taking off a summer and a fall and just like getting better. Like, how you get to college baseball is you be good at baseball, not get exposure when you're 15 and you're throwing 74 miles an hour and you can hardly hit the ball out of the infield. Like, what are we doing? Like play, but play less and train more, right? Like it's crazy to me to think that, the community is kind of ran that the way it is, right? Especially for kids who want to play college ball, right? And what's the right path for you? So next I want to talk a little bit about pitching. I think the biggest issue with youth pitchers is the velocity chase, and really just the velocity chase done the wrong way. It really, it really doesn't make sense that it's like we don't try to start throwing hard until we're in high school and we're trying to jump our velo 4 or 5 miles an hour in 6 months, and it's like that's not how you do it. Like you start when you're 11, 12 years old and you long toss once or twice a week. You make sure that you're sprinting once or twice a week, that you're working on your strength, however it is you want to do that in the gym or, with mobility and plyo training. And there's a lot of ways to get strong, right? And to move fast. But if you start doing that at a young age and you just make it a part of your routine, you get to the high school level and you don't have to worry about staying healthy because you already have this routine where, you're building velocity like, at like a gradual gain over the course of your career. And by the time you're 18, 19, 20, you throw gas because you've had all of this consistent strength, arm strength and speed gains over time. And then like your arm's in great shape too. But instead we go to these velocity enhancement programs, which are just like a shot of steroids, man. Like, yeah, you can take some pieces of that program and put it into your normal routine, your weekly routine, but you're not going to be able to consistently train that way. It's just a shot. And yeah, you'll throw harder, but you also put yourself at health risk, right? You also put yourself in a situation where you put a lot of stress on your arm, and it's like just gradual gain. Even if you're 13, 14, 15 years old, like start long tossing twice a week, start running, start training, right? Start taking care of your arm, doing all those arm care, things that are important, the stretching and, the plyos, if that's your vibe, or if it's not, whatever. But make sure that you have like a consistent weekly routine that you're going to do for long periods of time. That's how you stay healthy. And that's how you consistently build strength, right? And if you start doing that at a young age, you'll grow up and you won't have a ton of arm injuries, especially if you have quality mechanics and you're throwing the ball the way that your body is meant to be thrown, right? Or your body is meant to throw the ball, right? And that takes a little bit of trial and error. It takes good coaching to help you find that. But, the answer is not velocity enhancement programs. And then the other piece of the health and safety when it comes to youth pitchers is just the amount of pitches thrown. Like, I have to tell this story about this kid, that I know, right? Try to keep names and whatever out. But, he's committed to LSU, young kid, right? Like, underclassmen, very first district game of the season, he throws like 120 pitches. And this is like mid-March. And like, it was like, it made me sick to my stomach, right? Almost broke my heart for this kid. Cause I'm like, dude, this is the stuff. And then a week later, he comes back and throws almost as many. So in 2 weeks, right? In mid-March, this kid has thrown, almost 250 pitches and he's committed to, a top 5 Division I program. Right. And it's like, bro, what's going on? Like there's major league pitchers that won't throw 100 pitches in a start the whole year, right? And if they do, it's definitely later in the season. But we got this, 15-year-old kid, 16-year-old kid, whatever, doing it, in mid-March. And it's like, that's the big reason why like kids don't train correctly. They don't train consistently and they throw too many pitches. And that's really just where we're at. So, we'll break that down like youth pitching to, high school pitching and beyond. and just talk about like how, like if you want to pitch, if that's your vibe, like how do we do it? How do we stay healthy, long term based upon what I've seen over my career, and on that topic, I got, podcast episode 2 I put out as well. This guy's he's in AAA with the Blue Jays. I've coached him when he was 12 years old. I've seen his journey, his ups and downs, and we've got a great podcast out. There's some gold in there, so I hope you guys go check that out. And then finally, we'll wrap it up, this little short intro podcast about hitting. Tell you the 2 things that I think are super important when it comes to hitting. And number 1 has to be like, stay away from swing coaches. Like, the best hitters in the world and the best hitting coaches in the world, they can teach it all, right? And that's what you have to think about. Like, you have to think about learning hitting like you would think about learning math, right? You have all these different aspects to math, right? Stats and geometry and calculus and, all these different, aspects of math. And it's like, makes you a mathematician, right? Well, we're trying to be a great hitter. We got to learn like when it's important to stay tall and swing down, when it's important to kind of shorten up and play pepper, when it's important to try to lift the ball and be vertical, right? When it's important to see it out in front, when it's important to let it travel, right? All these different feels are important. And a lot of times young hitters, they're trying to find one way to hit when it's like you find your way to hit by learning all different ways to hit. And that's like that's what I really try to do with my guys. And, they're better off for it. My guys that go off to college, like they come back and it's like, coach, I'm one of the smartest guys in the locker room. And it's like, let's go. That's the biggest vibe, right? That's how you really learn to hit and make adjustments, is learning all of it. You'll know you're a real student of hitting when you can look at anything, even the most ridiculous thing you see on TikTok or the gram, and be like, yeah, I can see how it plays. Even if it's crazy, you just be like, man, I could see how it might play for this guy, or why it might help me in this situation. Like, that's when you know you're really a student of the game and you're starting to learn hitting, right? And then the last aspect that I think is, that I'm going to talk about today, the second aspect that I think is super important when it comes to hitting, and it will like literally change your life, is just understanding how you respond to anxiety in the box, right? And it's just like anxiety in real life, okay? Like, everybody responds to anxiety different, right? Some people like me, for example, when I'm anxious, I'm mean. Like, I'm going to be too hard on my son, right? I'm going to be mean to my girlfriend or my mom or whatever. Like, so I have to like check myself. Like, if I'm anxious, I have to remind myself like, hey man, you're an ass when you're anxious, and some people are hyper when they're anxious. They got to clean the house. And some people are sleepy when they're anxious. And some people are talkative and some people are quiet. Well, it's the same thing in the batter's box. Some of you guys, you get like too tight, stiff, like you can't move when you get anxious in the box. And some of you guys move too much. You get too loose and you have these, big movements, right? And then, some of you guys can't pull the trigger when the ball's in the zone. And some of you guys expand your strike zone. Some of you guys are late, or some of you guys are jumpy. Like, you have all these different ways that you respond to anxiety that doesn't happen in the box, right? And it doesn't happen in the cage, but it happens in the game, right? Like, the biggest question that any hitting coach ever gets is, how do I transfer what I do in the cage to the box on game day? And it's like, well, like, you have to figure out how you respond to anxiety, because there's no anxiety in practice, right? But then you have that anxiety in the game and you react differently, right? So there's a couple ways that you can, you have to figure out, who am I? And then you train on the other side of it. Right? If you're a guy who gets like, stiff and tight when you get in the box and you get anxious on game day, then in practice, like, you got to train like loose and flowy, right? And if you're a guy who moves too much, has too many big movements in the box on game day, like, you're a guy that wants to train like small, simple, tiny movements when you're in practice, right? And that's how you combat that anxiety that shows up in the game. Right. But a lot of kids go their whole career and they never understand that. They just keep trying to muscle memory stuff. Like, dude, muscle memory only plays on your A+ swing on a ball down the middle. But what about when it's, down and away and you got 2 strikes, or it's up and in, and like you have to be dynamic. Right. And that's what you guys miss. And you have to learn, how do I respond to anxiety in the box so I can train against it? Right. And make sure in practice, when you're in batting practice, you're creating some anxiety. right? And there's a lot of different ways to do that. Turn the velo up, turn the velo down, work on the off speed, right? Put your body into different positions, work on hitting bad pitches, work on, getting off your A+ swing. Like, make sure that you're counting your line drive percentage and your exit velocity averages. Like, how hard am I hitting it on average over 20 cuts? Put some press on each cut. That way you're a little bit more used to it, right? But I think those are the big things when it comes to hitting. Yeah, so I just wanted this first podcast to just kind of, give you guys an idea who I am, how I, kind of what my takes are. I'm going to go into detail about a lot of different things. I'm going to have players and coaches and parents and a lot of people on the show to interview, to just give you guys an idea of like, what's actually happened in the baseball community for kids, for just, normal kids, normal families, who see success, like, and, reflecting back on like what we would have done different, or, what we could have done better, and what we see in the community. And again, that's what gets me up in the morning, is to help kids and to help families. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm going to try to come out with at least 2 podcasts a week. Some are going to be solo, some are going to be interview type of energy. But make sure you hit me up on the other socials, Coach Cam _ABD on the gram and on TikTok. And I can't wait to keep it moving. All right. Check you next time.